Kakadosh Boker Or. Daf Yomi Masechet Zevachim, Daf Tzadi Amud Aleph 91, says the Gemara. We were just speaking about right now where we wanted to make it a machloket Tanaim. And we wanted to say as follows: Emure Kodashim, right? We're talking about Emure Kodashim Kalim, right? Shiatsu Lifnei Zrikat Adamim. We're talking about what happens if you have the Emurim, right? Which are the limbs of the animals of Kodashim Kalim, that they went out of the Azara before the sprinkling of the blood. So Rabbi Eliezer says, there's no going to be a problem of Me'ilah. Yeah, so he says, "Ve'en chayvim alehem mishum pigul," right? And they're not going to be chayav mishum pigul notar v'tameh, right? They're not going to be chayav. So he says, you're not going to be chayav because of pigul notar v'tameh. Rabbi Akiva says, "Moalim ba'en." There is a problem of me'ilah. Okay, ve'chayvim alehem mishum pigul notar v'tameh, and you are going to be chayav because of pigul notar v'tameh. So says the Gemara, "My love bedahadar ailinhu plige." Is the machloket not between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva? The machloket to do with that they come and they put in the emurim, right, during the time of the Zrikat Adam. So he comes and he says, Ubeha plige. And with this, they're going to be arguing. Ubeha plige. So this is a machloket between them. The more savar mifsalev yotze, that it becomes pasul when it goes outside of the Azara. More savar lo mifsalev yotze. It does not become pasul when it goes outside of the Azara. Okay? So Amar Rav Papa comes and he says, "B'da'adar ailinu kule alma lo plige." In the case where they went back, right, and they brought in the emurim before the zrika, and it was inside during the time of the zrika, so everybody agrees that the zrika helps for them. Why? Because they do not become pasul anymore, like the yotzeh. Meaning like this: if it went outside of the zara, so it's going to be a problem. But what happens now if it came in before they did the zrika? So he's trying to say, according to everybody, the fact that during the time of the sprinkling of the blood, which is the zrika, they were inside, so it's going to be okay. But here, so here the machloket is going to be if they were outside of the azara during the time of the sprinkling of the blood. And this is a machloket between them. The more savar, one of them holds en zrika moelet liyotze, that the zrika doesn't help to kodashim which are going to be found outside of the azara. Umor savar, Rabbi Kiva holds zrika moelet liyotze. It does help for the sprinkling outside of the azara. So ask the Gemara, Rav Papa Amar, but 1 second, but Rav Papa is the one that he comes and he says, Biditnihu abrai, right? Kule alma lo plige. If right now we're going to be talking about the lechem, right? He comes and he says, Shaya lechem outside of the azara during the sprinkling of the blood. Nobody argues that it doesn't help. So the question is, if you brought it inside, meaning here we just flipped it, right? What does that mean? We flipped it. We said before that ki'ilu, according to everybody, if it went outside but then it came inside during the time of the zrika, it's okay. And now we're saying no, that's a machloket in such a case. But according to everybody, if it was outside, for sure it's not okay. And before we said that was a machloket. Everyone understood the difference. One more time. Yeah, you guys with me or not?
More or less.
So one more time. Before we went and we said that the machloket was if it's outside. So they had kadashim kalim, they took the limbs outside, and then they sprinkled the blood inside. Aval efo emurim pachutz, on the outside. That's going to be a machloket. But according to everybody, even though it went outside, if they brought it back inside during the time of the sprinkling of the blood, can be shila zrikat adam, ziyeh kasher.
You have to be both of them inside.
Yes.
Inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I mean,
outside is going to be
doesn't work.
Doesn't work. So now the question though is, what happens if it went outside, but then I brought it back inside, and during the time of the sprinkling of the blood, it was inside. Zebeseder lefia mandaman rishon. That's Rav Papa. So the Gemara asks, Rav Papa said b'diuk kafuch. Rav Papa said that if it was going to be on the outside, according to everybody, it's not good. And if it was going to be on the inside, and then it went outside, but then it came back inside, that's a machloket. So we switched everything. You understand? Yeah. So answer is Gemara, Hanemile, right? Matai ze hamilim haelu, right? Kabesh shte alechem, only by shte alechem. The lav gufei de zvicha. Remember that it's not itself a korban. Remember shte alechem, zerak chalot, right? Zelach lechamim, it's only breads. So it's not a real korban. Aval emurim, but the emurim, right? Which are going to be the gufei de zvicha, that in itself is going to be zvicha, it in itself is going to be what? A korban. So then if it's not going to be outside, that's what he's saying, that's when it's going to be a machloket. Okay? Fine. meaning we're making a differentiation between the shtei alechem because the second one was shtei alechem. So the shtei alechem, it's never a zevach. So if it's never a zevach, that's why he said that even if it's going to be on the outside, right? He says it's going to be okay, right? But the machloket is good. But he says, but when you're talking about emunin, emunin is a completely different world because that's when they're going to be arguing. Ofot kodmin. You remember we said that the ofot come before the minachot, right? Birds come before minachot, flower offerings, because it's because of the blood. So he comes and he says like this. He says, right, adraba, the opposite. Minachot should come first. Why? Sheken yeshna b'tzibur k'v'yachid. What does that mean? The mincha also applies to tzibur and also applies to the yachid. The ofot is never in a tzibur. So since it's never a tzibur, so there's a reason to say that really be'emet minachot should come before ofot. So answers the Gemara, filuach still mine damim adifa. It's still better because it's called blood, and the blood in itself is already a very important part of the. It's a ma'ala, even a bigger ma'ala than being part of the tzibur, right? So therefore, the mine damim is going to be right even above. Okay, next minchat chote. What about now minchat chote? So he comes now and he says right as follows.
There's
right?
Atonement that
yes,
first.
the minchat chote is going to come before the minchat nedava, meaning a flower offering of an atonement is going to come before a flower offering, right, which is a nedava. So he says, adrabah, the minchat nedava should come first. Why? Because you need shemen v'levona, meaning you need oil and frankincense. The minchat chote does not need the oil and the frankincense, right? But the minchat nedava does. So the fact that it requires more things, I would have said that it comes first. Answers the Gemara. He says, no, the fact that it atones, that supersedes anything else. Because at the end of the day, it's going mechaper. As biglash as a mechaper, it atones, that's stronger. Next, yeah, ibayelu. So now we're going to ask the following question in the Beit HaMidrash. Minchat sota or minchat nedava. What about when you have minchat sota, minchat nedava? Right? Ezem and kodemet. Which one comes first? Do you tell me minchat nedava kodemet sheken teuna shemen levona because it needs the shemen and levona, right? Or are you going to tell me now? Right? Or maybe you're going to tell me minchat sota is kadma. Why? Sheken ba levarer avon, because it's going to be varer whether she did it in avera or not. Meaning, what's the entire purpose of minchat sota? It's going to try to find out did she commit adultery or not. So maybe that should come first. Nah, no. Yeah. Hopefully you're right. Minchat sota is not that tadir, but it's not a tadir because it's a nedava. Nedava is a present. It's not a more, meaning we don't go by the korbanot what is more common, right? We go by because if not, imagine a chatat. We don't want that the chatat should be more common than than anything else, But unfortunately, yeah. But so he says like this: Tashema. So we're going to try to bring a proof. Minchat chote kodem le minchat nedava. We said that minchat chote is going to be before minchat nedava. Okay, so one more time. We said we have a minchat chote, then we have minchat nedava. So which comes first? So minchat chote, who dekalman minchat nedava. Why? Ha minchat desotalo. So it's mashma. Only it's going to be a minchat chote, right? But not minchat sota. So it's mashma. The minchat sota, which is not coming for kapara, is not going to be before minchat nedava. So minchat nedava comes first. So says the Gemara, Mikatani, do we learn mipnei she mechaperet? We didn't learn that. We learned mipnei shebal chet because it comes on a sin. Meaning, if you would have used the terminology because it atones in Achanami, but you didn't use the terminology. You said because it's coming on a sin. So v'hanami, and it's also ba al, right? Chet. What?
You have a Gemara?
I couldn't hear you. What?
You're still talking about the sota?
Yes.
They don't have an
If she was innocent, now there is a kind of reward. She will have children and so on. So maybe in this case we
No, but here, so what we're saying is like this. We're saying if you use the terminology al chet, so then you're right. But it's using terminology al chet instead of mechaperet. So here it's not a kapara. The sota is not a kapara, right? It's al chet, and that's what the other one was doing. So therefore, that's what we're asking. So we're not sure exactly which one it is. So he comes and he says like this. So he says, Tashema, right? So he comes and he says like this. Zo kodem lezo, shezo ba min achitin v'zo ba min seurim. He says, you know why this one comes first? It comes from chita. Chita is wheat. Remember the pasuk, eretz chita seora. What is the grains of Israel, right? Which one comes first? Chita ba lifnei seora. Then if you got wheat bread and you got barley bread, which one do you do first? The wheat bread. So chita. So he comes and he says, b'chashivut, yeah, and the importance, right? So he comes and he says the same thing. He comes and he says the minchat sota is barley because she did a maaseh of be'ema, right? Because the animals eat barley. So he comes and he says, yeah. So he comes and he says, he comes and he says, this one is the chitin and this one is from the seorim. So he says, my lover, we're not talking about now minchat nedava should come before minchat soda. Because if the minchat nedava comes from wheat, so that should take precedence over the barley. So answers Gemara, no. Minchat choteh, right, is coming from chitin, comes before minchat sota, which comes from the seorim. But we don't know about minchat sota and minchat nedava. So says the Gemara, Tepukli de hamechaperet v'alav mechaperet. So why don't you just learn? 1 second. One of them is mechaper, one is not. Meaning the sota is not mechaper, and the one of minchat chote is mechaper. So he says ve'ela, but rather my minchat nedava. What is going to be to do with the minchat nedava? Tepukli. What did I just say? Dezo teuna shem levuna vezo, right? And a teuna shem levuna. Just do the same thing. The minchat nedava always needs oil and frankincense, and the minchat sota does not. So therefore it should come first. So answers the Gemara, Ela, but rather right? We only brought down one of the two reasons, right? Which means, right, we don't know what be'emet, the mincha which we spoke about is going to become before the minchat sota, right? We're not sure if it's mincha chote or mincha nedava. We're not sure. Okay? That means even though the minchat chote and also minchat nedava comes from the chitim, he says it could be that it's just because of the chet and not because of that. We're not sure is that enough of a reason in order to come and to do it. So he says to do with one this question we don't have an answer, right? And therefore the Rambam Paskind again it's equal. So whichever one you could do first. Remember, whenever we don't have an answer, which one is actually coming first? So that was what the Rambam says. The Kohanim have a choice. So if you have a minchat nedava, minchat sota, they choose which one comes first, right? Because we don't have an answer. Okay? The Mishnah. Huh? Chatat ha'of is going to come before the olat ha'of. Says the Gemara, we're towards the bottom of Tzadik Amud Aleph, 98 on towards the bottom. Menan Mile, how do we know that the Chatat ha'of comes before the olat ha'of? Tetan Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita, v'yikriv et ha'shelach chatat rishona. You're going to bring that which is for a chatat first. Matamul omar, what does it come and teach you? She'en tomar omar lelamed, right? That it's not going to come and teach you lelamed shetikrav rishona, that it's going to be brought first. Sharei kvar ne'emar, but it already says v'tasheni ya'aseh olah. The second one you're going to do an olah. Ela ze bana av. But it's like a binyan av. Lechol hachataot sheikadmu laolot. To all the chataot which are going to come before the olot, habaot imahen which are going to come with them, ben chatat of leolat of, whether it's going to be chatat of leolat of, ben chatat behema leolat behema, fafilu chatat of leolat behema. Right? It's always going to be the same thing. So therefore, what are we coming to try to say? That it's a binyan av. That all the chataot are always before the olot. Meaning, I would have known chatat of olat of. Okay, chatat first. Chatat behema, olat behema, chatat first. But even a chatat ha'of, meaning even a bird, right? But why? It's a chatat. So the chatat always comes before the olah. Hilkach, therefore, chatat ha'of leolat ha'of, right? Where did we learn? Right? We learned chatat ha'of from olat ha'of from veta sheniya seolah. Chatat behema leolat behema midrabi Nachman. Since the Torah actually added it in, right? When it says v'aseh ta'icha v'chatav et chadolah, so chatat ha'of leolat behema, right? Where did we learn it from? From the binyan av. Meaning the other two, chatat ha'of, olat ha'of, it's a pasuk in the Torah, but it says veta sheni ya'aseh olah. The second one you do an olah. Mashma, what is the first one? You do a chatat. So that's what the mifurash in the Torah. The second one is the fact that it added in chinuch halviim v'aseh ta'echad chatav et ta'echad chula. So from there, from the ribui in the Torah, we learn chatat of the behema comes before the olat behema. So really, we're also learning it from the Torah. The last one, which you said that was a chidush, which is basically chatat ha'of and olah behema, that's a binyanav. Binyanav means we learn it from like the pyramid. We learn it from the pyramid. Since I already learned that the halakha is like this by chatat ha'of, then olat ha'of, so by chatat ha'of and chatat behema. Now I just say the last one is going to be a binyanav. Tashema, we're going to come and learn. Rabbi Eliezer says, Kol makom shenitchlefa chatat. Anytime that we're going to have a chatat, right, that was going to come and get mixed up with the ofot, which means that the Ikara the Chiyuva is a Chatat Bema, and Anani, he has to bring Ofot instead of it. So the Chatat Kodemet, right? So the Chatat is going to be before the Olat Of. Okay, Vekan, but over here, to do with the Yoledet, or whatever it is, that you're going to have the Olat Bema and Olat Of, right? That if she's rich, she's going to bring a Keves, right, for the Olah, and then Of for the Chatat. Now, if she's not rich, she brings two birds. One of them is an Olah, one of them is Chatat. So here, the Olah is Kodemet to Chatat Of, right? So he says, Kol Makom Shebal Chet, Chatat Kodemet. Anytime that it's going to come for a sin, the Chatat is going to come beforehand. Right? Why? Because obviously the chatat is mechaper. The kanen over here, ola kodemet.
The
Right?
woman swore she's never going to have kids again.
Yes, but at the end of the day, it wasn't coming for the real sin. Meaning, we come and we say, why does she have to bring a chatat? Because of this. But really, be'emet, it's not the real sins that we're talking about usually that a person comes and does a sin. So because it's not that like that, so therefore the olah is going to come first. So he comes and he says, v'chol makom sheshnayim ba'im tachat chatat. Right? What happens is both of them are coming for the chatat. Right? So he says, right? So for example, you're supposed to bring, right, a chatat, and all of a sudden the guy's poor, so he's going to bring two korbanot of the off. One is a chatat, one is a lula. So the chatat kodemet. Vekan, but to do with a yoledet, that again that she's poor, so therefore the olah is going to come first. So you see from here that you do have a case where olat behema yoledet, right, which is a rich woman, is going to come before the chatat off. Right? Why? Because even if olata off is going to come instead of it, right? You still see that it's first. So Amar Rava says lemikra higdim aktuv. Right? He says the pasuk was magdim the olata yoledet, right? Only so that way it's going to be in the pasuk first, but not to bring meaning it's only brought in the pasuk first, but it's not that you actually bring it first. So you really be'emet bring the chatat first because that's the general rule. You always bring the chatat before the olah, but in the pasuk they brought it first. So Tashema, we're going to try to bring another proof then. Fine. What about parim kodmim le'elim ve'elim kodmim lekvasim ukvasim le'sirim? Right? What happens right now? You've got different animals. Right? So what comes first? The parim, the bulls, come before the rams. And the rams are going to come before the sheep. And the sheep come before the he-goats. Right? The sirim. So says the Gemara, Tzadik Amud Bet, right? 90b on the top. So it says, my love, are we not talking about now? We're talking about the Musafim of the Chag. Right? Why? Because the Sirim, the he-goats, are the Chataot, right? And still the Parim, right, and the Elim and the Kvasim are Olot, and they come first. So here's the proof that Olah comes before Chatat. Because all of these, one more time, on the Chag, you're going to have Sirim, you're going to have the Parim, and you're going to have the Elim and the Kvasim. So now, the Elim, Kvasim, right, and the Parim, all these things are olot, are burnt offerings. The seirim, the he-goats, are going to be what? Chataot. But which one comes first? We said that the seirim are the last. That means the chatat is the last. So answers the Gemara, no. There we're talking about nedava. What does it mean nedava? Which means that if a person comes and he's going to bring olot nedava from different animals, and they're all olot, so which one comes first? So the order is going to be parim, elim, kvasim, v'sirim. But we're not talking about chataot. I mean, don't compare it olah and chatat because that's a mistake. It's not. There's no chatat here. They're all olot, and therefore when you bring an olah and you've got parim olot, you got elim, you got kvasim and seirim. How do you bring them? So that's what we just taught. We taught that they go in a certain order. So parim kodmim le'elim. Why are parim come before the elim? Sheken nitrabu b'nesachim, because they're going to be much more in the nesachim more than the elim, right? The wine libations. V'chen elim lekvasim. The same thing happens with the elim before the kvasim, right? Why? Because it has much more of niskehem, more than the kvasim. Yeah. Here it says to do the korban olah or the shlamim, you bring yain v'solet ulav Hashem nesachim. For the pad, you're going to bring shlosha esronim, 3 esronim of solet balul b'chatzi ayin shemen im chetzi yain. For the ayil, you're going to bring shne esronim, 2, right? Balul b'shlishit ayin shemen shlishit yain. And if it's going to be the keves, you're going to bring a revi'it of ayin shemen with a revi'it ayin yain, which means like this. Each one of the animals, you have to bring a wine libation, which is wine with it, wine and oil. So therefore, do you realize for the par, you're going to bring 3 esronim. Remember that this is all in measurements. When we're talking about where is this? Here it is. It says here like this. So you've got you've got here the hin. When we're talking about the hin, here's the isaron. So isaron, every single isaron is around 2.5 liters. So therefore, the par is going to bring 3 esronim. So it's 3 times 2.5. Okay, so it's going to be 7.5 liters of balul bechetzi ahin of shemen and chetzi ahin yain. So the hin is 4.4 liters. So chetzi. So it's 2.1, let's say, right? So he comes and he says the par is going to be three esronim with half of a hin of shemen and half of a hin of oil of shemen and half of the hin of wine. The ayin is only going to bring 2, not 3, 2 esronim, right? And not a half, but rather a third of a hin of oil and yain. And the keves is only going to bring 1 isaron, which is going to be with a revi'it, not even a half or a third, but rather a
relative.
yes. So now he comes and he says, yeah, he says like this. So therefore, the parim kodmin la'elim sheken yitarbu v'nesachim, v'chen elim v'kavasim, kavasim nasidim sheken yitarbu aliyah. So he comes and he says, so therefore he says the elim are going to come before the kavasim, and the kavasim are going to come before the sidim because they also bring the aliyah, which is the tail. So since they're bringing the tail, so therefore it's going to add it. Yeah? אתם יכולים, מרדכי, תעשה לי טובה, תזכור את הדלת.
עלייה זה השומן, לא?
No, זה זנב. Yeah? Tashima, so now we're going to come and we're going to learn. Part of the Kohen HaMashiach. Yeah? So when we're talking about now the part of the Kohen HaMashiach is going to be קודם לפר אלם דבר של ציבור. ופר אלם דבר של ציבור, קודם לפר עבודת כוכבים. ופר עבודת כוכבים, קודם לסירי עבודת כוכבים. So again, one more time. We're now talking about the par. So this par of the Kohen Mashiach, of the Kohen Gadol, is before the par elem davar shel tzibur of the entire tzibur. Okay? So now he comes and he says, right, because this is a chatat that the Kohen Gadol is bringing, right, when he made a mistake, and they actually went according to his psak, and this goes before the par elem davar shel tzibur that the Sanhedrin would bring. The par elem davar shel tzibur comes before the par of Avodah Kochavim, that if the entire Tzibur came and they did Avodah Kochavim, Avodah Zarah, so therefore they would bring a par Avodah Kochavim, the par Elem Davar Shel Tzibur comes before that one. The par Avodah Kochavim comes before the Sirei Avodah Kochavim, right? And the Afagav, the par Avodah Kochavim Ola, the Sirei Avodah Kochavim is a Chatat. So this is now the Stira now. One more time. We always kept on saying that the Chatat comes before the Ola. We did bring down one exception to the rule by Yoledet because it's not really a real Chatat, right? It's not really a real sin offering. So fine. But here, you just brought down that you're going to have a par of Avodah Kochavim coming before the Sa'id of Avodah Kochavim, and the Sa'id of Avodah Kochavim is a Chatat. And the par is an Olah. So you see from here that the Olah comes before the Chatat. So it answers the Gemara, right? No. Both of them tzibur. So he comes and he says, Ve'ema mereisha. So what do we just say? Look in the Reisha. The Reisha says, par elem davar shel tzibur is before the par Avodah Kochavim and the tzibur. So therefore, you see that the chatat comes before the olah, meaning from the same mishnah, right? That you or the braita that you want to come and you want to bring a proof. You're bringing me a proof from the sefer, from the latter part of the braita, that the olah comes before the chatat. I'm going to bring you a proof from the former part of that braita that the chatat, the exact opposite, that the chatat comes before the olah. So answers the Gemara, bechad mina mia lo kamrinan, but we never saw it with the same species. Meaning, did you realize that one of them was always going to be, right? That means, where did you ever see that the chatat is last? Only when it was a different species. One of the chatat was a sa'ir, was a he-goat, and the other one was a par, was a bull. Right? So he says, the chatat kadma, ki kamrina, and what are we saying? Betrei mine. Right? So therefore, if it's going to be with two different species, right? And therefore he says, ashkechan olah de kadma lechatat. So we did find the olah, which is going to come before the chatat.
The olah's a bull. And
Yes, exactly, a goat, a he goat, and that's why we're saying this. So we did find it, right?
Why?
Yeah, because we said the bulls are always before the he goats. So Amri b'Marava Mishmed Rava Barmari. So we learned in Marava and Eretz Yisrael in the name of Rava Barmari. Chatat avodah kochavim. When you have a chatat avodah kochavim, right? It says it's chaser aleph. It's lacking an aleph. What does that mean? When it says in the Torah, usidizim echad lechatat, chatat usually you could spell chet tet aleph tav. It's missing that aleph, ktiv. So therefore, the lacking of the aleph is teaching you that this chatat is lacking the ma'alot of the other chataot, and therefore that's why the olah comes before. Meaning the fact that in the Torah it's lacking an aleph, that's why it's showing you that it's not like a regular chatat, and therefore the olah comes before this chatat. Ravina Amar, Ravina is going to bring you another answer. Kamishpat kativ behu. It's written by Para Olah v'Sira Chatat Avodat Kochavim ve'Asuch lo yada par membakar v'echad right leolah u'michatov nisko kamishpat. The word kamishpat, like the rules, is mashma that the Avodat Korbanot is going to be like the mishpat of the way that it's written in the Torah. And therefore, there's like a special halacha to do with this halacha, this one, only the Sayyid, right? Only to do with Avodah Kol Zara, that the Olah will come before the Chatat. Meaning, generally speaking, Chatat comes before the Olah. Here, it's a special Yotzei Min HaKlal. It's a special exception to the rule. V'hashta dati la'achi, now that we just mentioned this, afilu tema, even if you're going to tell me parim de chag nami, even if you're going to tell me also the parim of the chag, you could also answer the same thing. Kemishpatam ketiv behu. Because it's written kimishpatam, meaning we went and we wanted to answer something different. Now we could say one second. There to do with those korbanot, it also says kimishpatam. So for since it's kimishpatam, it's a new ruling that when you say kimishpatam, like their rules, and here you have that the rules are going to be different. So therefore, it's an exception to the rule. Right? It says kimishpatam. So what's the exception to the rule? In this case, the olah will come before the chatat because there the sa'inim was the chatat and the other animals were the olahs, and the other animals are going to come before the chatat. So we're going to ask now the following question: what about chatat haof ve'olat behema u'maaser? When you have chatat haof and olat behema u'maaser, all three of them are coming in one shot. Which one is kodem? Are you going to tell me that the chatat haof comes first? Right? But one second, but the maaser comes before. Right? Why? Because the maaser is a korban. So a korban, always meaning like a korban of behema, obviously, right? So the korbanot of behema always come before the ofot. Likdo maaser, so you want to do the maaser first. Olat behema comes before. Right? So tiktim olat behema, ika chatata of the kalmala. Basically, we have a dilemma here. One more time.
All three rules are in conflict.
Exactly, all of them are in conflict. But chatat always comes before an olah, other than the ones that we talked about, whether it's going to be yoledet or whether it's going to be the how do you call this the ones of the musafim, right, of the chag, or whether it's going to be the other one of how do you call this of the avodah zarah, that the olah comes before the chatat. But usually chatat always comes first, even if it's chatat ha'of, even if it's chatat of a bird. So that's number one, rule number one. I've got another halakha. When I've got an animal and a bird, which one comes first? The animals always comes first, always before the ofot, right? So and I've got another halakha then, maaser and an olah, which comes first?
Olah.
The olah, right? The olah is koche kadashim, and the maaser, right, is kadashim kalim. So always we said kol mekudash, right, is kadosh mechavero, always comes first. So now I've got a stira that each one is in conflict with the other one. Why? I've got chatata off. I had to specifically say chatata off because if not, then I don't. If it's chatat behema, there's nothing what to talk about. So therefore, chatata off. So the chatat comes before the olat behema, even though it's a behema, but chatata off comes first. But now I've got a conflict because I've got the maaser. The maaser comes before the off, right? Why? Because the maaser is an animal. But one second, but I can't do the maaser first because the olat behema comes before maaser behema. So which one am I doing first? I'm in a limbo. I'm completely stuck. So answers the Gemara, Hacha Targimu, here they went and they said in Bavel that since you can't bring the olat behema because of the Gezerat HaKatuv, the chatat comes first. So the din then is only on maaser and the chatat off. So therefore you bring the maaser first. Why? Means Zevachim. That's the way that they answered it in Bavel. However, though in Eretz Yisrael they said, "B'ma'arav amre, ayle ba'olat behema bechatat ha'of." Right, what you're going to do is you're going to come and have the chatat ha'of, right, which is going to be with the olat behema, okay. And then he comes and he says, "Ve'agba'ata mi-maaser," and then it bi'a ota lemala from the maaser, which means the chashivut of the maaser that it's a mean zevach is going to be batel, right, keneged the chatat ha'of. Right, he says because the otah chashivut is going to be batel by the olah from the Gezerat HaKatuv. So therefore, you first bring down the chatata off, right, and then what you're going to do is going to bring the olah and then the maaser. Okay. What? Says a Mishnah in the middle of Tzadi Amubet 90b. Kol hachataot shebatorah kodmot la'ashamot. Every chatat comes before the Hasham except for the Hasham Metzorah. Why? The Hasham Metzorah, meaning when a person has leprosy and they're going to bring a korban, an Hasham, so therefore it's called an Hasham Metzorah. Mipnei shehi ba'al hechsher, because that is coming to be machshir the Metzorah, to eat kodshim and to come into the Bet HaMikdash. And therefore it's such an important concept that this asham, right, is going to come before the chataot. Kol hashamot shebatorah ba'in b'nei shtayim. All the hashamot in the Torah, they're always going to come when they're going to be in the second year of their lives, b'nei shnatayim, right? Uba'in bekesef shekalim, and it's going to come with, right, 2 shekalim. Chutz me'asham nazir v'asham metzorah, except for the asham nazir and asham metzorah, shehen ba'in b'nei shnatan, right, that they are going to come b'nei shnatan, which is in the first year. Ve'en ba'in bekesef shekalim, and it's not going to become with the kesef shekalim, but rather that means you don't need the 2 shekalim, right, like the other ones. Keshem shekodmin b'akravatan, just like these korbanot are going to come before the other ones, right? Kodmin also ba'achilatan, they're going to be also in the achila, which means that, you know, we mentioned the different order, so we're going to have, right, one more time, there are 6 ashamot. You remember we said Hasham Gezelot, Hasham Ilot, Hasham Shecharova, Hasham Talui, Hasham Metzorah. The first 4 are Ail, right? And that's why it's going to be a Kevetz Zachar Men Shnatayim. And from the time that it comes into the second year, right, he says, Shana Shniya, 31 Yom Adez Nikra, right? And he's already into the second year. After 31 days, it's already considered 2 years, right? And the same thing, it has to be Shne Slaim for the value. Okay, so he comes and he says, right, just like they're going to be kodem to do with the way that it's going to be brought, so to the way that it's eaten. Meaning, how do you eat it? The same way, right? Whichever one is more chashuv, you eat it first. Okay, so he comes. That's why the chatat is going to be eaten before the hasham. The hasham is going to be eaten before the tudah. The tudah is before the shlamim, and the shlamim before the bechor. Right? That's what Rashi says. So he says shlamim shel emesh u'shlamim shel hayom. What happens right if I got 2 shlamims? I've got 1 shlamim of today and 1 shlamim of tomorrow. Right? Of today and 1 of yesterday. Right? Now remember that the shlamim could be eaten shnei yamim ve'layla echad, 2 days and one night. So therefore, I could still have this case. So you have shlamim shel emesh, shlamim shel hayom. Shel emesh kodmin shel hayom. You obviously eat the one of yesterday first, right? That means don't eat the one that's fresh. You have to eat the one of yesterday, right? Obviously, we're going to see why, right? Shlamim shel emesh v'chatat ve'asham shel hayom. What happens? You have the shlamim of yesterday and the chatat of Hashem today. The shlamim shel emesh kodmin, right? Why? Because it's a zilzul to make it that it's going to get ruined. So therefore, right, you're going to first always eat the last one first. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Chachamim come and say chatat kodmim mipnei shehi kodshe kadashim. The chatat is going to be first because it's kodshe kadashim. Vechula, now all the korbanot which are going to be eaten by the kohanim, rashaim l'shano b'achilatan, they could change whatever the way that they want to eat it. Leochlan tluim u'shlokim v'ushalim, they could eat it whether it's going to be roasted, whether it's going to be cooked, whether it's going to like overcooked, whether it's going to be cooked normally. Latet letocho tavle, you could put in different types of tavlinim, of chulim, v'tavlin truma. Tivra Rabbi Shimon, these are the words of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir says no. You're not allowed to put the condiments of truma, because usually truma you don't have a deadline. Right? There's no deadline for it. But over here, if you're going to put the truma inside of the food, and now the food is going to go bad because you didn't eat it on time, so now you have to burn it. So you're burning truma. So because of that, it comes Rabbi Meir and says you cannot put tavlinim of truma inside of the food. Says the Gemara on the bottom of page Sadik Amud Bet 90b. Says the Gemara, so we're going to ask the following question: Tadirum kudash ezemen kodem. We learned in 2 different Mishnayot. One of them we learned Tadir v'sheno tadir, tadir kodem. Whatever's more constant always comes first. Then we learned the second Mishnah, Mekudash. Whatever's more holy comes first. But now, what do you do when you put both of those together? You've got one of them which is Tadir, but the other one is more Mekudash, right? So do you say Tadir kodem mishum tadadir? Right? Do you say Tadir comes first because it's Tadir? Or Dima, maybe you're going to say Mekudash Kadim, right? The Kadish, right? Or maybe you're going to say the other way around. So the question is, which one comes first? So Tashema, so we're going to come and we're going to try to bring a proof, right? And the proof says like this: Temidin Kodmin lemusafim. A Korban Tamid is going to come before a Korban Musaf. Why? Because the Tamid is every single day. The Musaf, no, right? It's Tadir. Now, ve'afal gav, the musafin kadisha. But 1 second, what's more holy? The musafin, right, are more holier because it's called Shabbat. It's Korban Musaf Shabbat, which means that it's chovat of the Shabbat. So the tamidim also come during the weekdays. So it's not holy. It's just more tadir. So here you have tadir and mekudash, And what comes first? The Tadid. So this is a proof, right, that Tadid comes first. Obviously, the Gemara is going to go back and forth. Do we actually say that or not? But that will continue from there. Bezat Hashem.